Why do people, when they see these pictures, compare them to modern transformer images? Is it not clear that such temples in the past were built only to go there and pray, or historians hide something and was not quite correct? Anyway, I'll show you some more pictures with antennas. Yeah, I call them antennas. It doesn't matter whose temple it is, Christian, Muslim, or any other. All buildings in the past had antennas installed. Why are people so sure it's for religious purposes? If you saw something like this today on any other type of building, you would say, oh, it's an antenna for energy purposes, whether for wave transmission or wireless. But when you see them in religious temples, whether they're Christian, Muslim, or whatever, created in the 1800s, you take it for granted and you don't even pay attention to it because you're used to it. That's how your mind is deceived when you're born with certain beliefs. It does not matter whether your opinion differs from others, because if it does not coincide with the accepted, it is considered wrong. Because history textbooks have everything written down, and no matter if it's true or if it was specifically rewritten, the main thing is that it is written correctly, and your opinion does not interest anyone. I want to show you something else about cables after that reboot in 1800. Suddenly, there were cables everywhere. Until then, there were no wires at all. Everything was wireless, and now, all of a sudden, cables were needed to generate power. You don't have to go far to see an example of such a reboot. According to common history, at first there were horse-drawn vehicles, that is trams, which dragged horses along the rails. It seems strange, but at the same time, as we are told, there was no electricity, as they could have been driven. But it's very interesting that when you look at photographs of the early 19th century, you can come across these examples. They clearly show vehicles moving by themselves, without horses and without wires. But how is it possible? Maybe they were battery-powered, but something doesn't add up, because then they would have to charge all day, and they would look much more massive, while in the photos we see small and light wagons on wheels. And what do we see next? Something has changed in the course of history, and the time has come for horse trams and wires. In the past, the transport was self-propelled, but then people found a more convenient way to pull it, and then everyone started to think that these kind of iron antennas were just religious. It was probably like this, nothing just comes out of nowhere. At some point, something changed in civilization. Maybe someone or something took over the world and made it all free for people to start paying for it. Atmospheric electricity was suddenly cut off worldwide. They certainly didn't destroy these transformer buildings, which were somehow transmitters of atmospheric electricity. They just turned them into temples and said the antennas were just decorations. People were outraged, but could not resist the system. After 3 or 4 generations, all this was forgotten, but there were old people who passed on to their descendants the stories of what really happened. Some thought they were mad, but others believed and made it available to others. And that's where these theories came from, especially when there's so much evidence. I'm going to show you all this, and you're going to decide what you see. Why all the buildings around the world are built in ancient style, with these antennas. No matter the nationality, language of the country or continent, everywhere they are the same. Don't you see the difference between photographs of this civilization and modern days? In today's buildings, you will not see such huge doors and windows. You know why? Because today we build buildings for ourselves and don't waste extra material on high ceilings, big arches. We're just building a box with 4 walls and 2.5-meter ceilings to save money and save money. You think it's not about everyone? The same people built buildings for themselves, just their height was higher than ours. All wireless, no cables, no wires, not even on the streets. It seems that these are the remnants of the previous human species, or else all of this was built by our civilization, the people who worked in the coal mines in the 1800s and fought incessant wars. Look at this. Look at the top of the building. And by the way, it doesn't matter whose temple it is, Christian, Muslim, or any other. All buildings repeat the same principle of top construction, and every time I look at them, I'm amazed by the size of the doors and the windows and all this beauty. It's just magnificent. Despite the fact that today in Dubai, Tokyo, and all major cities have these huge structures, they are incomparable with the amazing things that we see in these pictures. Look at this picture now. These lines in the photos are marked to help you understand the wireless electricity techniques. The history of Germany is fascinating. I mean, Germany wasn't really Germany. It was something completely different, a completely different civilization. Look at the buildings and the columns and everything. Similar structures were previously found throughout the world, in Europe, in the States, in Russia, and even in Australia, which is very far away. Since there was a united empire all over the world, a single civilization, otherwise it just can't explain. The official history has already recognized the existence of Tartaria, and in fact, Tartaria only 7 years ago was a conspiracy theory, and everyone ridiculed this theory. It's just that so much evidence has surfaced, alternative researchers have dug into the truth, and the official history has simply left no choice but to acknowledge Tartarius. Given the fact that many people have worked extensively in coal mines and on farms, even if one looks at the photographs of the construction of various buildings, it is immediately apparent that farmers on wagons could not have built such structures. We didn't build them, we dug them up. Even when I looked at this photograph which shows people doing something, I couldn't find out what they were doing. However, it is clear that they are digging something up and removing the soil from there with trolleys. What were these tunnels or pipes lying under the city? Who built all this before them? After all, it was clearly dug up, not created by their own hands. This is the middle of the 19th century. Now look at this picture of a flooded city being dug up, or this one digging up a railroad, that one. Or let's move to Barcelona. Here, historians in general just laughed and mocked the population, using the method, write anything, people will believe anyway. So, Grand Hotel International. Now I'm going to read you a line from Wikipedia. The Grand Hotel International was built in 53 days, had an area of 5,000 square meters and accommodated 600 rooms for 2,000 people. However, the most interesting thing is that the hotel was conceived as a temporary structure and was demolished a year later. What do you think I'm exaggerating? No, that's what Wikipedia says. Imagine, it's only 53 days. It's less than 2 months. How can these people, on horses, with carts, picks, and hammers, without modern tools, build a 5-story building on 5,000 square meters for 2,000 visitors? Anyone who is at least a little familiar with the construction will say that it is simply impossible, even today, with modern capabilities, and even more so at that time. For such a huge building, it would take years to design. So, how did these people build it in 53 days? And interestingly, everyone does this, standing huge hotels, call them temporary, and then demolish a year later. Are they laughing at us at all? Or is there anyone here who believes that?